Time to get to an investing session. It's been a great time to be in the stock market, especially for investors who put money in the market for the past 3 years. Wow, were you smart? That was hard to do when the stock market was getting crushed. We have with us now Sean O'Hara, president of Pacer ETFs, to find out what he would do now. Sean, so good to have you here. What are some places to get in that have not joined the big rally?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Angela. It's great to be with you. This market is an interesting market, to say the least. It's being driven really when you look at things like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100, where there would be ETFs that would track those like SPY and IVV for the S&P 500 or QQQ for the NASDAQ 100. The majority of the return, if not all of the return, has really been limited to 7 to 10 big mega cap tech names. And without those 7 to 10 big mega cap tech names, the rest of the market really hasn't provided any return. And when you think about the historical significance of that, it's happened a few times in the past, and shortly thereafter, we tend to see sort of a correction back to normal from those big 7 to 10 names because the valuations get a little stretched. So you have a dilemma if you're an investor. I think you can continue to chase that kind of stuff, although I think most people are fairly exposed there. The places that we're seeing flows here at Pacer ETFs is, into some different areas. For example, on the international side, we have 2 ETFs, iCow and GCow, that use free cash flow and free cash flow yield as a screen. You're buying high quality stocks that generate a lot of cash and cash flow, pay very, very competitive dividends. And then, interestingly enough, small caps have been a place where we've started to get some flow as well. And our ticker there would be CAF, a little baby cow, get it? The ticker is really kind of cool. But again, it's 100 small cap names. And in small cap land, with some of the characteristics of small cap stocks, like, for example, on the broad indexes like the S&P 600, 30 to 40% of those names don't really even make any money. Being more focused and targeted in your small cap allocation, especially kind of, into the headwinds that we're facing here with high interest rates and inflation and potentially a recession on the horizon, it's really important in small caps to have a high quality portfolio. And then one interesting way, if you wanted to play the whole AI, we have 2 tickers here at Pacer. One is an ETF we launched 5 years ago that owns the data centers and the cell phone towers. And you can't have AI or streaming or e-commerce or blockchain or the Internet of Things without big computing power. And today that computing power is delivered through data centers across the country and across the globe. And so our ETF that owns those data centers, ticker is SRVR. And we had some success with that. So we thought, well, okay, so now that we own the facilities, if you will, this sort of mission critical real estate that powers all these technologies, let's start to pull it apart, and then let's see if we can't just own everything inside the buildings, which would be essentially the chips and the devices and the switches and the software that enable this. And so it will remain to be seen, where the real money will be made in AI. I suspect it will be a spenders receivers story. There's going to be companies spending a fortune on AI, trying to figure out how to gain efficiencies and lower their overall costs. But in the meantime, the receivers of those dollars are going to be the names that you see in an ETF like SRVR and TRFK.
You recently were a part of the SIBO opening bell ringing. That had to be exciting.
It was quite an experience. It's a very, very fascinating place. We've had a long-standing relationship with SIBO going back to the beginning of Pacer ETFs here. We started our ETF company 8 years ago. And the very first ETFs we launched, we listed on what was known at the time as BATS, which was a competing exchange that sort of got stood up to try to compete with the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. And then BATS has been acquired by CBOE, and they're making a big push into market making as well. So it was great to be able to sort of see that whole thing come to fruition as we've kind of transformed here through the years, and we continue to list product there. And we had a nice group of financial advisors out there. We had a great 2-day stay with them. We did a little bit of filming, and we did some meeting with FAs, and then we had a nice big bell ringing at the end. So it was kind of cool.
That was cool. We think you are cool too. Thanks so much, Sean. We will have you back.
No, great. Anytime. Love being here.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.